We thought Lucas Bergvall's performance against Newcastle on Saturday was the making of him, but how wrong were we? A goal, a winning goal in a Carabao Cup semi-final last night against Liverpool to cap off another excellent display. He's been going from strength to strength in recent weeks, ironing out all of the little raw kinks in his game, and is becoming a really important part of this Spurs side. Spurs fans got told we were getting carried away. I got told I was getting carried away in the summer. Give him time, give him patience, and absolutely, we have to do that 100%. But he is showing you exactly how good he is, and he did that last night. Welcome back to the Ben Bowman YouTube channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Oh, it's nice to talk about a Spurs win. It is nice to talk about a Spurs win. Make sure to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe. What a moment that was for Bergvall last night. What a win that was for Tottenham. What a performance it was as well in the circumstances when you think about the players out, the players that are just churning out performances week after week with little to no rest in between games, little to no ability to rotate this side. Like, it is phenomenal, the effort that they are putting in. And look, I've said it many times that I still think we're going to come out of this period in a good place. I do. And I think last night was a really good example of the fact that you can take positives from adversity. You think of the performances of Gray, of Bergvall, of Spence, players that wouldn't necessarily be getting these opportunities if we didn't have this injury crisis. Solanke working his nuts off every game. Kulusevski working his nuts off every game, showing exactly how important they are to the project. Solanke validating the reason that we signed him and spent big money on him. Look, it's been a phenomenal effort from these players in recent weeks, and the results haven't bared fruit. They haven't, and the injury crisis is not the only reason we're in this position, you know. And look, we can talk about the fact that Ange definitely did adapt last night. It was a different sort of performance from Spurs against a really good Liverpool side that took us apart, 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, and that makes last night even sweeter. We were superb, I thought, especially given the context and the circumstances around the game. So make sure to like and subscribe, and we're going to delve into everything now. We're going to talk about Kinsky, we're going to talk about Archie Gray, we're going to talk about Yves Bissouma, a player's performance I thought went under the radar a little bit last night. We're going to talk about Spurs' defensive approach, Pedro Porro, Dom Solanke, all of it we're going to touch on in this video. But I think we have to start with the main man himself, Lucas Bergvall, and we'll come back on and talk about the goal shortly, but let's talk about his performance as a whole, because obviously he started in that number 10 position. Rodrigo Bentancur had to go off. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the incident too much in this, because one of the things that's been doing my head in, and first and foremost, I really hope, and I'm so glad that Bentancur is okay, it seems, and I really hope it's nothing serious, and it isn't going to be like a continual issue for him. And it was horrible to be there in the ground for that last night. Absolutely horrible. But I'm glad that he's okay and talking and everything like that. But I'm not going to talk about the incident too much and what happened, because I think with these things, there's way too much speculation. And I just hate that. I really hate that. And I think it's quite grim. But Bergvall started in that number 10 position. I think early on in the game, you can kind of see why. Early on in the game, I think he was showing exactly why he was picked there. And I was gutted for him, really, when Bentancur had to come off, because I think there's been little moments in Bergvall's kind of Spurs career where Carabao, where he had to come off with the Dragusin red card and all those kind of things, and didn't really get the opportunity to play in a role that maybe best suits him and all that kind of stuff. And last night was again a little bit like that. But the way I thought he adapted, and him and Yves Bissouma played really well together as that pivot, he deserves even more credit. But there were so many moments in that first half, in those first 10 minutes, where you just saw that energy, those legs. Here, just nipping in, winning the ball back, popping it off quickly. This one, Bissouma wins the ball back, and we're going to come back and talk about Bissouma. Into Solanke, pops it off, and you see the legs and the energy from Bergvall. You see that. You see exactly why he's in there. You want Bissouma and Bentancur to kind of sit more and be that bit more of a protective pivot in that midfield, and allow Bergvall the legs to get you up the pitch. Don't put as much pressure on Kulusevski to do that, because you can see he's just running himself into the ground at the moment. Get someone in there who's fresh, who can just drag us up there. And he did that so well. Exactly like the first goal against Newcastle. Gets us up. It's a pass that doesn't quite bear fruit again. But again, here, we win the ball back. Liverpool, unforced errors last night. And it was, as the game went on, I was getting more frustrated a little bit about our ability to not capitalise on the mistakes that Liverpool were making. And obviously we did. And it was the most amount of unforced errors I've seen from them in a game in a long, long time. And eventually we got our reward for punishing them. But, they give the ball away here, and it's straight away Bergvall making that run, gets the touch, lays it back. In here as well, nipping the ball back. He can do so much, and then Spurs are away here as well, getting in, making a recovery tackle at the last minute. So effective in both boxes, in both halves. Obviously, both boxes that defined his kind of performance, really. Obviously, with the goal and then those kind of clearances, those sorts of moments. I think I said this in the video that I made on Sunday after the Newcastle game. He's showing so much of a different side to, I think, what we thought we were going to see from Bergvall. Look, you are still seeing all the brilliant passes, the skills, the confidence on the ball, the technical security, all of that stuff that you kind of saw in the compilations that, we saw when he was in Sweden. But you're seeing a real grit and a real kind of fight and a real physical side to his game that, like, not to take it, not to sound silly, but like when you see this 18-year-old kid, with perfect blonde hair, and you see the tricks and stuff that he's doing, you don't necessarily expect to see someone who's really in there making tackles and really being physically strong and dominant against some really good midfields like he was on Saturday and yesterday as well. And he's really not afraid to get stuck in. He's a real talent. And again, he's one of those players that when you watch him live, you get and now we're starting to watch him live more, especially when you're watching him at the stadium, you get a sense of his physical presence on the pitch. He's 6'1". He's kind of got that Bellingham sort of frame about him, and he's a top player. Here again, being aware of the patterns in build-up that we need to execute, just popping it off to Dragusin. Here, lovely pass into Johnson, wraps his foot right around it, right onto his foot. Second half, this is what I love. How many times in pre-season, right, did we talk about his scanning? Scan, all the time. All the time, he's looking around him, being aware of his surroundings. Here, gets the ball. He's got two players on his back, basically, in Jones and Salah there. Ball comes into him. That little movement, he does it all the time to just get himself a little bit of space and fool the midfielder or defender that's trying to tackle him. And he's able to create that separation and get away from Jones. And this is what I love. It's a really tiny thing. But for me, this is when you can sort of sense that someone is starting to take control of the game a little bit. When it kind of might just be an aesthetic thing, but the way he just pops it off to Bissouma and goes, yeah, give me it back, and makes that little run round him and then plays the pass. It's all going through him. Here, receives the ball in a tight space. Again, gets his head up. Look at the ability to turn. I know it's minor details, but you get a real sense of the technical security of him and the way that he opened his body up. He was fantastic. And we'll talk about the goal now before we kind of come on to everything else. Because I think Dominic Solanke and Pedro Porro deserve so much credit, more credit than Bergvall for this. He's just there to finish it. But it was just like the nastiness and the whip on the finish as well was something I loved, and I'm just so excited about him. But Porro here, obviously Porro played that brilliant ball for the disallowed goal that we're going to talk about. Actually, let's talk about the disallowed goal first before we come on to the goal, because once we got that disallowed goal, I thought there's another chance in this for Spurs. There's another chance in this. And again, it kind of comes through Bergvall as well. Spence into him. Again, he makes that turn, and he's the one driving across the centre of the pitch and sort of knitting everything together. This is what I love about Pedro Porro as well, and he did this a lot last night. In these kind of situations, you need that ability to play one touch and just lay balls off with enough pace and enough venom just for someone to be able to control it rather than powder puff passes and maybe taking too many touches. Just lays it off first time back into Bergvall, and they play this nice little 1-2. Porro, I thought, was great last night as well. He's been getting much better again in recent weeks. Pops off to Bergvall, makes the movement outside of him, and that little clip down the line to Dom. And look, he deserved a goal last night, and I'm so glad he was involved in the winner because his work rate and everything like that. But again, we see a similar ball from Porro for the goal. And I think the backspin that he puts on this is so deliberate. It's one of those things where there was a brilliant video that was doing the rounds on Spurs social media that Spurs put out of like a slow-mo build-up of the goal from behind Kinsky's goal. And you just see the chip that he just puts on it, and he's put it into a channel, and Solanke will do this. You don't see many centre-forwards do this to Ibrahima Konate. He's able to get in front of him, get goal side, get closer to the ball by getting to the right-hand side of him. And he just gives him a big shove, and look at the separation that he's able to create. But that all comes from Porro's pass. Solanke's able to get there because of that purposeful backspin that Porro puts on it. Holds it off. Look at the separation. Look how far he's got away from Konate. That has to drag Van Dijk out with him as well. They don't expect him to get there. And Bergvall, purposeful. Johnson screaming, go, make that dart. He does make that dart. And let me just hide myself here. The elation that I felt in that moment, man, it was just like it felt like a real moment. It really did feel like a real moment, and like a coming of age thing for Bergvall, and the knee slide and the celebration and everything. Like it was just like absolutely buzzing, and we've not had a lot to be excited about recently because of the up and down nature of the results and the performances, or well, not even up and down recently. It's been tough. It's been really tough. But what a moment that was for Bergvall, and the way he takes it and just wraps it in the corner. You know, someone said yesterday, or I think I was doing the podcast with Will earlier, and someone was saying that there's almost like comparisons to like a young Gerrard with the bite, the running power, the quality that he's got in his game, and that's a Gerrard goal, isn't it? getting on the edge of the box and just the venom. I didn't really appreciate it at the time because you're just like, oh, go on, and you want him to finish it. But when you watch it back, it's in the back of the net before you know it. It's just a brilliant finish and a brilliant performance. And there was many. Let's talk about this moment as well, which I thought, please don't let this be something that comes back to bite us. It's Bergvall's tenacity and his pressing to close down Alisson. Nearly nick it the first time, nick it the second time. Porro, I think he does the right thing by having a go first time. It's imperious from Van Dijk to get the block off. But Bergvall is there to pick up the second pieces, play that little pass into Porro. And he, I think to be fair to Porro, I think he makes the right decision to dink it. And it's one of those things where Van Dijk does really well actually to get across to him. But also it's one of those things where Porro, because he backs himself so much as a finisher, he knows he's got that in the locker, so he tries it. And with Alisson coming out, it's not a bad option. He just kind of drags it. And I just thought, please don't be something that comes back to bite us. And it wasn't. I thought Porro was really good in the game. I thought he was really, really good. Let's talk about Yves Bissouma as well, because I thought Yves Bissouma is someone that I've been critical of because I think he's been inconsistent. And in that sixth position, you have to be consistent. But I think in our system, you're asking a lot of that number 6 in terms of the ground that they have to cover, in terms of the discipline that they have to have. And I think that's why maybe he is... Lily White Lab said it last night. He's arguably the most over-hated player in our squad. And, he should be criticised at points because I think some of the decision-making at times has been incredibly frustrating for a player that ceiling is super high on his day. But last night, I thought, especially after getting that booking, which again you can say is silly, gets the wrong side of, I think it was Gakpo, but it's a kind of foul that he has to make. And, it's one of those things with Tottenham sometimes where you kind of let your biases maybe about a certain player get in the way of actually what's happening. Because how many times you think about Man City back in the day with Fernandinho, and you think about Spurs fans sometimes that say we lack that bit of professionalism and ability to break up the game and get these fouls and take tactical fouls and take yellow cards. It's kind of what Bissouma did last night. But the way that he played in and out of possession, I thought, was fantastic. Here, we talk about that Bergvall chance earlier where he really drives. That comes from Bissouma. His tenacity wins the ball back. Solanke pops it off and then we can drive. Here, Spurs trying to build up from the back. Always making himself available. And then this is what I love again about Pedro Porro. Like, Spurs move it from side to side. And we're going to talk about Kinsky in a minute. Porro is so good at this when we're trying to build out and we break that initial press. Bissouma, you can see there, he's been able to get away from the front three of Liverpool that are trying to press because Spurs have worked it out. And then there's space for him to drive. If Porro can just play this first time pass, Porro's ability to do that is so underrated, I think. And it's a big reason as to why we are successful at playing out a lot of the time. Because he's just there in that kind of inside channel, able to just technically secure pass back into Bissouma for him to be able to drive, holds off the man, and Spurs work it. Just hide myself here. Clearance. Again, it's him picking up the second ball. Brilliant pass out to Son that allows this sort of chance. Again, that ability to win the ball back and have that strength in these kind of situations in those areas allows for those easier chances to come for someone like a Son where they're not trying to break down a low block and he can just kind of fizz it into an area where he has isolated the fullback 1v1. He struggles when he's maybe going up against a fullback and a winger and he has to come back and recycle. But this is where Son is so dangerous. And that's why that pressing game for Spurs and that ability to win those second balls and duels is so important because it allows those final action players like Son and Johnson to be more involved in the moments that can actually make a difference. I thought Biss was excellent. Again here, he kind of gets bypassed in the first initial phase. On a booking at this point, makes a perfectly clean tackle. And then Spurs are able to get out as a result of that. Again in here, winning duels down that touchline. Again, you see him have to do this a lot to kind of track out into those wide channels to battle with the opposition's number 10. You saw him do it against Chelsea. So clean. Here, I love this. Kulusevski, look at the dart that Bissouma makes into that space. Carries it forward into Son. Little 1-2. Then it really opens up for Bergvall, and that's his opportunity to wrap that pass into Johnson. I thought they were so disciplined out of possession. You can kind of see the average positions here. But Bergvall did go hunting and pressing at times, and he had more license to do that. But he also was there to protect Bissouma as well. Let me just put Johnson on as well. It kind of gives a better indication of the substitutions once Bentancur came off. Obviously, Kulusevski's is a bit skewed because of the opening stages. But often we saw Spurs kind of in their out-of-possession setup. Kind of a little bit, very similar, I thought, to the Man City Cup game. This was at 1-0 at this point. The block defending, the discipline there, just to force Liverpool side to side and be solid in the shape, but press them enough where they have to kind of think about moving the ball quickly and making mistakes, but having enough bodies to be comfortable, blocking crosses, getting crosses out, heading them away. Brilliant from Spurs. And I thought in the first half, we were settled in our block as well, but Kulusevski and Solanke were kind of pressing us that front two, just as we saw against Man City, and it meant that we were able to get out on the break. And it just meant that we were secure enough that we allowed Liverpool onto us to create that space in behind. And we did that in the second half. I just didn't think we had enough energy to execute the chances or create the sort of quality of chances that we did against Man City in the Cup. I thought it was such a valiant effort. Such a valiant effort. And while we're on defenders, let's talk about Archie Gray. I want to talk about Gray, Spence and Kinsky to kind of wrap up the video. And if you are enjoying it and you feel like you learned something, please do subscribe. We're on the march to 10k. Yeah, let's talk about Archie Gray. This was one moment that I absolutely loved, and you guys would have seen this. Spurs again defending in our block at 0-0. He gets the clearance. It comes back. He is then the one to step up and read it. He takes it out, and instead of just playing this first-time ball into Kulusevski, gets away from Gravenberch. And again, here it really opens up for him. And you think he could play that football first time, but he knows if he plays that, Van Dijk or Konate, I can't remember who was on the pitch at the moment, whether it was Konate or Endo, is more likely to step up. Or no, who came off it? I think it was... I can't remember who came off anyway. They're probably more likely to step up and intercept it and keep that Liverpool pressure on. So he continues to drive. Then Liverpool have to back off. Then he plays that pass with the outside of his foot, taking 2 players out of the game. Phenomenal. Here as well is what I loved. He did this so many times. There's so many other examples of this. Him just stepping up and reading it, being that Romero type player, that aggressor, and then being progressive with the ball out to Werner. And it's a brilliant pass that allows him to get in behind Trent and run at the back four. Fantastic. Spence as well. Again, in the league game against Liverpool, I thought he actually dealt with Salah really well 1v1. But obviously he scored 2 goals and 2 assists and had a good game and was still effective. But 1v1, he didn't give Salah much at all. Here, it's kind of all a bit back to front with the Jed Spence kind of stuff, but just box defending, getting there with the headers. His ability to kind of drive away from players and get the team up the pitch, combining with the winger, blocking passing lanes, standing up Salah, winning it off him. I love this. So physical, so hard to get off the ball. You need 2 players around him to get him off the ball. Again here, box defending, getting it away, not once, but twice. Again there. And his ability to drive forward in these kind of situations. I think we're going to see his attacking game going to another level when he's actually able to play on the right. But he feeds it into Son there. Again, just aggressive in his tackling, getting there at Bradley, holding it off again, intercepting, getting away in tight spaces, covering ground, being hard to get off it, shrugging Jota off it, getting him to the ground. Just so physical, so strong, so technical. Just the application that he's putting in at the moment, I just think is absolutely fantastic. And again, last night, Salah got nothing out of him. Didn't create anything. Let's finish up by talking about Kinsky then, because look at this. Tears in my eyes, seeing us be able to build out from the back this high up the pitch with a 3 at the back with a goalkeeper forming that back 3. His passing ability, his variety in his passing, that we made a video about it on the channel, and I thought he might play, but I didn't expect to see him this assured on debut. I knew he was confident, but my word. It makes us so much harder to press. His ability to get us up the pitch like this and his ability to spray passes. You can even see there, like, this goes out to Son, who chests it down. The technique on that, it's a spray. It's not like, with all due respect to Vicario and Forster, and I love them both, and I think Vicario is amazing, and look, they're going to have a real fight on their hands for that number 1 jersey. I really do believe that, because of Kinsky's ability to help us build out and make us harder to press and make us more unpredictable and build up with that variety of passing that he's got. Look at the technique on that. It's like a footballer, and Kinsky has grown up in this generation of footballers or goalkeepers that have had to be footballers. The older generation of goalkeepers have had to work backwards and adapt to be able to play out from the back. Kinsky's got it. He's 21 years old, and he's been doing this his whole career. Here, the confidence is to dink it over Jota like that. Here, under pressure as well, putting his studs on the ball. I love that. That pauser, that control, that calmness. Inviting 3 Liverpool players to press him and getting around them, and then Spurs can get out from these situations. Those little clip dink balls into the fullbacks, putting his foot on the ball again. It's underrated. It's little details, but it's underrated. It shows an element of control and calmness. Into Bissouma there, breaking lines, taking 2 players out of the game. This was a slight hairy moment with this shot that I thought he might have spilled, but he was in control of it. this pass up to Son, there was another one as well that Son didn't quite get on the end of, but the trajectory, the flat nature of it, Son, brilliant touch to get it down. And look, then you basically got a 2v2 situation. I think there might be another Liverpool. Oh no, it's 2v2 situation that Spurs don't quite make the most of. But again here, I love this. That ability to just put his foot on the ball and feint. Like, he's got that option in there for Bissouma if he wants it. But he puts his foot on the ball, feints, and has the confidence then just to go he plays it out to Dragusin. Who, again, by the way, Dragusin, I thought was excellent last night. Limitations on the ball are still there a little bit, but that block off the line was so crucial. And he showed that bravery to maraud forward as well at points. Again here, comfortable in this. Again, it feels like a maybe hairy moment when you're in the ground, but he dealt with it well. And again here, the communication, clear communication, my ball. I don't think I've found myself like that many times in a ground in a game recently going, keeper! Like, you know, just being like, well done. Like, just superb, man. And again, we spoke about it, didn't we? Saves. It's all well and good him being able to play with his feet, but we spoke about his ability to come out and rush out of his line, play as that sweeper and get there. Does that, closes the angle for Nunes, makes himself big. And again here, they clip that ball over the top in behind, but Kinsky's over out to it, and stops it. Stops Salah getting there. And then this save at the end. It's a really good save, but look how much of that side of the goal he's got covered. Starting position, so important. Brilliant reflex to tip it round. What a debut, what a goalkeeper, what a prospect. And what a feeling. And look, I don't want to be like Spurs are back or anything like that, because I don't think that's helpful, but just a big moment for Ange and a big moment for Spurs last night. Just to win a game of football and keep a clean sheet against the best team in the country. Might have had our luck a little bit with the Bergvall thing, but the first yellow card was never a yellow card, it was a dive. Like, brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed that game so much. I really, really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed breaking it down for you guys. And if you enjoyed it as much as I did, then please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Nice one. Up the Spurs. Come on.